Hi, I'm Lou with another episode of My Car Story, and today we're with Alan Travis, a historian. So we're going to show you something special. It's going to be the early automotive history, and you're going to love this. Alan, give them a little bit of background on who you are.
Okay, I've been playing with early transportation for over 50 years. I like the origin, I like the originals, the earliest possible ones, so I've gotten 8,500 books and magazines to try to do a good job, so I can put myself in first person. I do bicycles, motorcycles, cars, race cars, everything, and I just want the earliest, fastest that there is.
And you built this about 2 years ago, and it's a collection of vehicles clearly, but it's also a museum, and we're going to show you each of these cars in great detail. So this is just the opening review that you're going to see here, and there's Alan's wearing his Duster, which would be time period correct. Alan, why don't you tell us about this one?
This is an 1897 John Perrin. This is the earliest production style vehicle that was made in Europe. America didn't have any production vehicles yet. The earliest production vehicles politically needed to look like a vis-a-vis carriage because that's what horses weren't scared of. So even if big brands like Fiat and Peugeot and John Perrin would make cars that look like this, that a horse would be relaxed to just step in front of. A 3-speed transmission, the people that made the car made clock tower and spur gears. So that's what's got underneath the seat. The 3-speed is on the column. This is a vis-a-vis seat, you can move it around. It's got an early car horn. It's all wood body, goes about 40 miles an hour. We've got probably 2,000 miles on it. Carbide lamps, which is they've taken from the miners, kerosene headlights. Just a nice driving car. Really early for a four-wheeler. Maybe one of the earliest four-wheelers, maybe the earliest one or two in America.
And let's talk about this one. We have Matilda.
This is a 1906, 1907 production Dirac. These were a doctor's type car, not an expensive car, other than all cars were expensive back then. This was a 2-cylinder car made out of cast steel, cast iron motor, cast steel, cast iron transmission, and the same for the rear end, heavy duty. And it was a pretty good sized engine, would go 40 miles an hour, and it would still go 40 miles an hour today. Also is a 3-speed transmission on the column, not a wood body, a metal body, very reliable. These were kind of a Volkswagen or a Model T far before they made those, so people would race these as a 2-cylinder car. So they were a fun car.
And let's show this. This is the oldest vehicle in the collection. And this is actually an automobile. Alan, why is this an automobile?
This is an automobile because you could order this with one front tire or two, and this has a differential. So you don't have to lean this to go around corners. You simply can steer it around corners. They also would put a seat on the front of them if they had the 2 front wheels. So you had 2 seats. This was the racy version. This was the first production vehicle that they actually raced. So they would race these on tracks, on the bicycle tracks. And it could go 40, 45 mile an hour on those tracks. It runs on hexane and hemptane, which is a hydrocarbon, which is normally burnt off when they produce oil. But they would put it in here and it would fire. So it's a really, really neat, extremely early automobile.
They're going to love this detail when we go over that, and to see you actually fire it is nothing short of amazing. Share with me what we have here.
This is a 1907 Delaunay Belleville. This was basically a French Rolls Royce. You know, a French Rolls Royce and an English Rolls Royce were sort of the same. They supplied the chassis. And then with the chassis, companies would put the bodies on. So this is the same company that built the Springfield Rollses or the Grey Ghosts from 1906, 1907. So if you're a Frenchman, you had a Delaunay Belleville. If you were an Englishman, you had a Rolls Royce. This one was shipped to Russia, and in all likelihood was Tsar Nicholas's spring car. We have pictures of Tsar Nicholas in his 4 Delaunay Bellevilles. And this was purchased in Russia. It was purchased in Australia in the 50s from an Australian general, and his document said it came from from Russia. So we're assuming it was a Russian presidential car.
This is the tallest vehicle in your collection. What do we have here?
This is Stevens Duryea. So this is important to the collection. It's got a giant 6-cylinder motor, which is really, really rare for 1906, 1907 production area. They made about 25 of these. This is a footman-driven or an owner-driven vehicle. It's got a giant back seat, so you could have it either way, but this was made by Stevens Duryea. Stevens Duryea, Mr. Duryea was two brothers, and they created production and inventions for automobiles, but they were smart enough to know that in America, if you wanted to create an automobile, you had to have somebody do your metallurgy. The Stevens Armament Company made armaments. So they combined together the two companies, so the metalwork in this is amazing. For example, the aluminum doesn't have a bunch of zinc in it, so it's got one casting for the aluminum and the transmission, one piece that's about 8 foot long, and that houses all of the things that could leak, but since it's in one housing, it doesn't leak, even though it's a total loss car. So
Let's show this one. What do we have here?
this is a 1905, 1906 Mitchell D2. This is the biggest motor Mitchell they had back at the time. This was at a time they had 8 horsepower and 12 horsepower and 50 horsepower or 15 horsepower. This one is 35 horsepower. And the horsepower doesn't mean horsepower, it means a taxable entity. So this is 320 cubic inches of 4-cylinder. We'll see that later in the videos. Very powerful. It can go more than 60 miles an hour. It was in the bottom of the lake in 1906 for 6 months. And then
Wow.
we fixed it in 1990. And then we won an award at the Concours d'Elegance 2 weeks ago. And we drove it on a 1,400-mile vacation this year.
From the bottom of a lake to a Concours award winner. Now here's a 1904, just a year later, and look how small this little one is. Tell us what we have here.
This is a 1903, 1904 model year, production year vehicle. One of the very, very first that Mitchell ever made. This vehicle is that vehicle in front of the Mitchell Mansion in Racine, Wisconsin. And that's the two wives that were seating in the car. They were in the car with that picture to let people know that, hey, women could drive this nice little car. This little car is a 20 to 25 mile an hour car, little 2-cylinder, very, very light duty and dainty. When you drive around in the residential streets, you just kind of wonder if it's going to make it. But then a year to a year and a half later, they made a powerhouse like this.
That's amazing. It's great to have these two cars. You're going to find out why Alan has each one of these cars too, and as it moves up in time frame, and why he stops at 1915. Tell us about this one.
This is a 1909 Delage Voiturette. This is a pretty serious car. 1909 is later than what we've seen so far. This is when the world, at least the world in Europe, has decided if you're going to race cars, you better make them really efficient with small motors that maybe have limited speed limit ranges. So this was a 2-liter class racing car, 4-speed transmission, dry sump oil, dry sump fuel, aluminum motor, aluminum transmission, steel rear end, all kinds of instrumentation. It's like a Stutz Bearcat that was made 5 years before Stutz Bearcat. This was not useful for anything as far as a family unit to carry hay and that kind of stuff. It was a racing and a sports car. This was like an early Corvette.
Nice.
They made airplane engines at the time. So this is an engine that Delage actually made, that the crankshaft stayed stationary and the cylinders would spin.
Isn't that amazing? Well, this is one of the crown jewels of your collection. What do we have here?
This is a very early Bugatti. It's not the earliest. The Type 13 were made in 1913 also. They made about 40 cars in 1913. The Type 13 was a short wheelbase version of a Bugatti, probably a little bit faster, but this is the iconic Bugatti that all Bugattis are patterned after for the next 20 years. This is a Type 22. Why is this one in the right proportion because it's got the same wheelbase. It's got a long wheelbase like what the race cars were, the Type 35s, the 28s and all. This is about the epitome of a racing car. It fits perfectly with you. It's a 4-speed transmission. You're using every ounce of the engine's horsepower. You're using every ounce of the steering. It doesn't take but a quarter. It takes a finger. You can steer it around. It is a performance car. It only goes about 75 miles an hour, but it's a full envelope 75 miles an hour.
And not only that, but the iconic Bugatti grille.
Yeah, all of the iconic Bugatti items on this car was carried through. In 1912, there's a few cars that had straight fenders and straight radiators, but 1913 is when it really happened.
Got it. This is one of my favorite cars in your collection. I just love the style of this car. What do we have here?
This is a Scripps Vitesse. So Vitesse meant speed. James Scripps Booth designed this car with a V8 engine in it. He also designed a motorcycle with a V8 engine in it. Made one motorcycle, made one car. This was guaranteed to go 80 miles an hour. We've had it in the 70s at least. And we rebuilt the engine a few months ago, so maybe we can get even more speed. But it's a very light car. It's similar in design to the Bugatti. It's got a bronze trunnion for the braking system. So it's kind of a heavy-duty version of a Bugatti. Not as refined, but these are very similar race cars.
And our last but not least, you could see the physical size of this one might be the biggest car as far as the actual body. What do we have here? The 1907 Renault.
This is a 1907 Renault. It's actually a copy of the car that won the first Le Mans in 1906. W.K. Vanderbilt watched the first race, and when he watched the first race, he wanted to order 9 of these, of the AIs. So this is one of the AIs with a 521 cubic inch, 7.5 liter, 4-cylinder motor. It's got a 2.1 to 1 ring and pinion, so it's spinning 1,600 RPM at 90 miles an hour. It'll go at least, I've been more than 80 miles an hour in this.
Oh, God.
Wood wheels, and we've done races in Laguna Seca and lots of places, and done tours. It's an extremely powerful car. It gets 2 miles per gallon when we race it, and it gets about 4 driving it along.
And maybe the most beautiful headlights in the time period of any car ever. Well, Alan, come on up here with me. First of all, it is just an honor to be with you and such a treat. I'm going to do this just because I'm getting the light on the back. It's such an honor and a treat, and we're going to do 2 things. One is we're going to show each car in great detail. We're going to ride in them as well. And then obviously we'll do at the end of this, we'll do an extended cut of Alan doing just what he did here, so you can see all of the details of what he wants to share on the wall. We'll open them up a little bit more for you, but obviously each individual car will have its own video. Welcome to the series, our automotive historian, Alan Travis. What a treat to be with you. Thanks so much for being on My Car Story.
Thank you.